At the far north of the American continent, where the cold sculpts mountains, rivers, and forests with an artist's precision, there lies a land seemingly shaped to inspire awe: Canada. It is a country where nature still dictates the rhythm of life, and the silence of frozen landscapes reveals a grandeur that words can hardly capture. Its boreal forests stretch like an endless green carpet, interlaced with crystal-clear lakes that reflect the sky like mirrors. Every corner of this vast territory seems to tell an ancient story, narrated by the icy wind whispering through the trees. As the seasons pass, Canada transforms. The pure white of winter gives way to the vibrant greens of spring and the golden tones of autumn. The snow-capped Rocky Mountains rise as guardians of the West, while farther north, the Arctic tundra stretches as far as the eye can see, sheltering life that survives the impossible. Even in the most inhospitable regions, there is beauty, raw, silent, and majestic beauty. It is within this contrast between the wild and the sublime that Canada reveals its soul. The immensity of its territory is awe-inspiring, but what truly captivates is the sense of harmony between life and its environment. Here, humankind seems but a temporary visitor in a world shaped by ancient forces: ice, water, wind, and time. And it is precisely among these forces of nature that one of Earth's most spectacular wonders can be found, a frontier of raging waters that separates two nations, yet unites the gaze of millions every year. The roar of nature in its purest form. Our journey continues toward Niagara Falls. Between Canada and the United States, nature chose to raise a border unlike any other, not made of walls or lines on a map, but of water, power, and sound. Niagara Falls is the beating heart of this natural frontier, one of the most breathtaking wonders of the continent. Millions of liters of water plunge every second, creating a curtain of mist that covers the horizon and a roar that seems to echo from the dawn of time. It's a spectacle that mesmerizes, a living reminder of Earth's untamed power. On the Canadian side, the majestic Horseshoe Falls curves like a horseshoe of liquid crystal, revealing one of the most mesmerizing sights on the planet. The energy that emanates from it is not only visual, it can be felt in the chest like a living pulse. On the American side, smaller cascades form a parallel dance, and together they compose a scene of strength and harmony. Visitors approach in boats that brave the whirlpool, and for a few fleeting moments, they seem to touch the very heart of nature. But what makes Niagara so extraordinary is not only the magnitude of its waters, but the contrast it represents. It is the point where modern civilization stands silently before the reminder that there are forces mankind will never control. And perhaps that is why, when facing that liquid abyss, every visitor feels the same shiver, a blend of fear and admiration. And if the waters of Niagara remind us of the raw force of nature, our next destination reveals another kind of power, the power of life that flourishes even in the harshest environments. As we journey farther north, the cold grows stronger, the silence deepens, and nature finds new ways to express itself. Now is time to discover Canada's wildlife. As we journey deeper into Canada's interior, the landscape changes. The scenery takes on an air of mystery, and human presence becomes almost non-existent. Here, nature takes full command, a land ruled by boreal forests, frozen tundras, and rivers that slice through the silence like ribbons of glass. In this vast sanctuary, every creature seems to play the precise role it was meant for, in a harmony that defies the chaos of the modern world. In the far north, the undisputed king of these lands is the polar bear, the largest land carnivore on the planet. Covered by a thick layer of fur and fat, it moves slowly across the ice in search of the seals that sustain it. The town of Churchill, known as the polar bear capital of the world, becomes the stage for one of nature's most impressive spectacles, the migration of these giant creatures toward Hudson Bay. And when the wind howls and snow covers the horizon, they remain there, as if the cold were nothing more than a part of their home. Not far from there, a smaller, yet equally fascinating figure slips between the shadows of the ice, the Arctic fox. Its white fur reflects the glow of the polar sun, making it nearly invisible amid the snow. Small, agile, and silent, it survives where most creatures would never dare to live. Its dark eyes seem to hold the secret of endurance, the lesson that beauty sometimes lies in the simplicity of survival. Farther south, the ice gives way to the rain-soaked forests and deep waters of the Pacific, where orcas reign over the ocean with grace and power. They swim in tight-knit pods, communicating through sounds that travel for miles. When an orca leaps above the waves, the entire sea seems to breathe with it. Each movement is a perfect choreography, a blend of instinct, intelligence, and emotion that reveals the complexity of the underwater world. In the mountains and valleys, another giant asserts its presence, the grizzly bear. Strong, agile, and revered, it carries an aura that commands respect. For indigenous peoples, the bear was a protective spirit, guardian of the forest, and symbol of strength. The black bear, more timid, hides in the forest shadows, leaving only deep footprints and claw marks on trees, quiet reminders that nature is alive and watchful. And across the plains and wetlands, an imposing silhouette emerges through the mist, the moose. With antlers that spread like the branches of an ancient tree, is the true sovereign of the Canadian forest. Its slow, deliberate steps seem to mark the rhythm of the land, as if each movement were a silent prayer to nature itself. Canada's wildlife is more than a collection of species. It is a reminder of the profound connection between living beings and their environment. And as we continue northward, nature reveals itself as even more raw and mesmerizing. Now we travel to the heart of the ice, where the midnight sun shines over the tundra. Welcome to the frozen north. As the map points toward the top of the world, Canada reveals one of its most mysterious faces, the frozen north. Here, time seems to slow down, and the silence is so deep it almost has a sound. The Arctic tundra stretches as far as the eyes can see, covered by a white immensity that hides ancient secrets beneath the ice. It is a land that challenges the body but nourishes the spirit, where the cold is not merely a climate, but a living presence, shaping everything around it. Across this vast frozen expanse, the Mackenzie Mountains rise with imposing majesty, their slopes etched by centuries of wind and ice. The fjords, carved by the passage of ancient glaciers, form natural corridors that seem built for the gods. When the sun sets, the sky comes alive. Green, purple, and red lights dance along the horizon in the form of the aurora borealis, a spectacle so hypnotic it makes the heart forget the cold. It is as if the heavens themselves decided to manifest in color, reminding humankind of how small we are before the grandeur of the universe. During summer, the sun refuses to disappear. It is the phenomenon known as the midnight sun, when day seems to have no end. Under this continuous light, the tundra blooms for a brief moment. Tiny flowers push through the ice, and animals take advantage of this short season of abundance. But soon winter returns and silence once again reigns over the land, an eternal cycle of endurance and rebirth. Within this extreme landscape live the peoples who have learned to decode the language of ice, the Inuit, Dene, and Gwich'in. They carry with them knowledge passed down through generations, stories, beliefs, and practices that keep them in harmony with the land. The igloo is not merely a shelter, but a symbol of ingenuity. The hunting of seals and whales is not just survival, but tradition. Every gesture is a dialogue with nature, a reminder that living here is an act of respect and adaptation. While the cold reigns supreme, the northern winds whisper the names of the mountains that guard the west. And that is where we are headed next, toward one of the planet's greatest spectacles, where the earth rises to meet the sky, and humankind once again feels small before the infinite. It is time to discover the Rocky Mountains. In western Canada, the landscape changes once again. The horizon, once flat and quiet, now rises in peaks that touch the clouds. The Rocky Mountains are more than a collection of rocks and ice. They are a symbol of the Earth's primordial strength. Their snow-covered slopes, glacial rivers, and lush green valleys create a scene that feels like it was taken from an ancient dream. The air here tastes different, cold, pure, and full of life. Every breath of wind carries the sound of conifer forests, the murmur of waterfalls, and the distant echo of a wild animal calling across the valley. Among turquoise lakes and towering cliffs, life adapts to what seems impossible. The Arctic wolf, silent and elegant hunter, rules these lands with intelligence and instinct. It does not live alone. It moves in packs bound by ties that go beyond blood, families guided by cooperation and hierarchy. When a wolf howls, its voice travels for miles, crossing valleys and mountains, calling its companions to the hunt or celebrating the night. It is a sound that sends shivers, not of fear, but of memory, the echo of a world in balance with nature. Yet not all wolves remain with their packs. Some, young and bold, choose to venture out alone, leaving behind the comfort of the group to cross unknown territories. They are known as dispersing wolves. They travel for days, sometimes hundreds of kilometers, in search of a new home or a mate. It is an act of courage and continuity, the instinct to keep the lineage alive and expand the territory. The lone wolf, wandering beneath the moonlight, becomes the very embodiment of freedom and persistence. In the Rockies, everything seems to follow this same principle. Nature never retreats, it transforms. And while the mountains guard their frozen secrets, the winds blowing from the east announce another landscape, equally grand but vastly different, flat and golden. We leave the snowy peaks behind and descend toward the Great Plains, where the horizon knows no end, and the pulse of life beats beneath the open sky. Leaving behind the majesty of the mountains, the scenery opens into a vast expanse of gold. The Great Plains of Canada stretch as far as the eye can see, like an ocean of grass moving gently to the rhythm of the wind. Here, silence is not the absence of sound. It is a serene presence, an invitation to contemplation. The sky seems closer, and the sunset paints the horizon in shades of fire and melancholy. It is a simple land, yet profoundly alive, where nature breathes in a slow, steady rhythm. In this majestic setting, the bison reigns supreme. Giants of muscle and calm, they move in herds that resemble waves rolling across the prairie. Each step lifts the dust of history. For centuries, the bison were the soul of this land, sustaining the indigenous peoples who lived here. From these animals, everything was used, the meat for nourishment, the hide for shelter, the bones for tools. But beyond survival, the bison was a spiritual symbol of strength, courage, and connection with nature. When it faces the horizon and stands against the wind, it seems to be conversing with time itself. In winter, when frost covers the fields and the wind cuts like a blade, the bison does not flee. It lowers its head, digs through the snow, and keeps moving forward. And when the storm comes, it faces it head on. This gesture became legend, the image of pure resilience, of accepting the power of nature without submission. It's as if these creatures remind us that true strength lies not in avoiding the storm, but in facing it. Farther ahead, the sound of water begins to rise above the wind, a sign that we have reached the Great Lakes, the largest freshwater system on the planet. 5 giants connected together, mirroring the sky, as if the world were split evenly between heaven and earth. Lake Superior, vast and deep, is an ocean of fresh water. Lake Huron holds the most enchanting islands, where the forest touches the inland sea. Lake Ontario, in turn, connects it all to modern life, carrying water to cities like Toronto. The Great Lakes are the liquid heart of North America, a perfect balance between nature and civilization. And it is from this meeting point between the wild and the human that our journey continues eastward, where Canada meets the Atlantic. There the wind shifts, the air takes on the scent of the sea, and landscapes begin to transform once again. It's time to discover the Atlantic coast. After crossing forests, mountains, and endless fields, Canada finally meets the ocean. The Atlantic coast is where the land ends and the sea begins its reign. Here the wind blows strong, carrying the salty scent of the waves and the distant cries of seagulls. The cold waters of the Atlantic crash against rugged cliffs, shaping rock formations that stand like sentinels along the shore. It is a region that blends wild beauty with human tradition, a place where every village, every lighthouse, and every harbor tells a story of tides and resilience. The coast is composed of 4 sister provinces, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick. Each carries a distinct soul, yet all share the same deep relationship with the sea. Here, life revolves around fishing, the tides, and the courage of those who face the ocean each day. It is a place where nature sets the rhythm, and humankind merely follows. As we travel along the shoreline, the scenery alternates between colorful villages, coastal forests, and deserted beaches that seem forgotten by time. The contrast between the deep blue of the sea and the lush green of the hills creates a landscape that feels painted by hand. Within this blend of colors and sounds, Atlantic Canada reveals its essence, simple, human, and profoundly connected to both land and sea. But it is on a peninsula surrounded by cold waters that we find one of the most enchanting places in the entire country, a land where tradition and nature walk side by side, and where every curve in the road reveals a new horizon. We now head toward Nova Scotia, the cultural and maritime heart of Atlantic Canada. At the eastern tip of Canada, surrounded by the cold waters of the Atlantic, lies Nova Scotia, a province seemingly designed to unite the charm of nature with the warmth of human life. The air here carries the scent of salt and history. The harbors are filled with colorful boats, the streets breathe tradition, and each sunset reflects on the water as if time itself paused to watch. It is a land of gentle contrasts, where the old and the new coexist in harmony, and where the sea is more than a landscape, it is an identity. The capital, Halifax, is the beating heart of this province. Its natural harbor is one of the largest in the world, and the city combines urban dynamism with a maritime spirit. Along the docks, you can hear street musicians playing as the aroma of fresh fish mingles with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. Halifax is lively, vibrant, and welcoming, but just a short drive beyond the city, you can feel the other side of Nova Scotia, the side that seems frozen in time. In the small fishing villages like Lunenburg and Peggy's Cove, Canada reveals its most authentic face. Colorful houses are mirrored in calm waters, and the solitary Peggy's Cove lighthouse, standing tall on the rocks, has become one of the most beloved symbols of the country. The people here live in tune with the sea, respecting its tides and moods as one would a lifelong friend. The beaches of Nova Scotia are another spectacle entirely. Lawrencetown is a paradise for surfers, where icy waves crash with strength beneath gray skies. The famous Cabot Trail winds along the coast, revealing views of mist-covered mountains and cliffs that plunge dramatically into the Atlantic. Every curve of this road seems to invite the traveler to slow down, breathe, and lose themselves in the raw beauty of the journey. But Nova Scotia is only the beginning of the maritime journey that extends farther north. Beyond its coasts, between deep fjords and mountains that dive into the sea, lies a land even wilder, where nature sets the rules and humankind learns to respect them. We continue now to Newfoundland and Labrador, a territory where the Atlantic shows its most grand and untamed face. North of Nova Scotia, the waters of the Atlantic grow colder, the wind sharper, and the landscape more rugged. Here lies Newfoundland and Labrador, one of the wildest and most awe-inspiring regions of Canada. The territory feels isolated from the rest of the world, as though time itself had forgotten to move forward. Mist-covered mountains, deep fjords, and tiny villages create a scene of untamed beauty. Here, humanity lives as a guest of nature, not its master. The coastal villages, many with only a few dozen inhabitants, preserve an ancestral relationship with the sea. Fishing boats set out every morning in search of cod, a tradition that has sustained generations. The sound of engines and the scent of salt mingle with the silence of the rocks and the constant chill of the polar wind. It is a simple way of life, but filled with dignity, a routine seemingly untouched by the haste of the modern world. Yet the true spectacle begins when the ice breaks away from the glaciers and drifts slowly southward. Massive icebergs float across the sea, creating a vision that feels like a dream. These mountains of ice shimmer beneath the sun, changing color as the light shifts from pure white to the deepest blue. It is one of the most poetic and surreal sights our planet has to offer. And in the same icy waters, whales and orcas surface, completing the symphony of marine life that makes this region a natural sanctuary. Among all these landscapes, one place seems to condense the grandeur of Newfoundland itself, Gros Morne National Park. Its ancient mountains, valleys, and fjords stand as silent witnesses to the formation of the earth. The park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, not only for its beauty, but for the geological history it preserves. Walking through Gros Morne feels like traversing the living pages of the planet, a reminder that even in the face of vastness, we remain part of the whole. As we continue our journey southward, the waters grow calmer, and the cold begins to give way to serenity. We leave behind the land of glaciers and approach an island that breathes peace and charm, a place where time moves to a gentler rhythm. Now we travel to Prince Edward Island, a piece of land surrounded by sea and poetry. As you approach Prince Edward Island, the landscape changes completely. The horizon takes on shades of green and red, and the cliffs, sculpted by the wind, descend gently into the waters of the Atlantic. It is the smallest province in Canada, yet one of most enchanting. Here, everything seems to move at its own rhythm, slower, gentler, more human. Winding roads cut through fertile fields and welcoming villages, while the sound of waves creates a constant soundtrack. It is as if the island were made to slow down time and remind visitors to breathe. The red cliffs, bathed in sunlight, contrast beautifully with the lush green fields that stretch toward the sea. It is a landscape that feels painted by hand, where every color finds its perfect place. The golden sand beaches extend for miles, ideal for long, peaceful walks. And when the ocean wind blows, the scent of salt and wildflowers mingles in the air, creating a feeling of purity that only untouched nature can offer. But the charm of Prince Edward Island lies not only in its landscapes, it also lives in its rhythm of life. The locals live serenely, deeply connected to both land and sea. The houses are simple, the smiles are genuine, and hospitality feels almost like a tradition. At dusk, it's common to see people sitting on their porches, watching the sunset paint the sky in orange and violet, as if the day were saying goodbye in gratitude. Each season transforms the island into a new scene. In spring, the fields burst with flowers. In summer, long days invite celebration. In autumn, the trees dress in warm colors, and in winter, snow covers everything with a serene white silence. Prince Edward Island is both refuge and home, a gentle reminder that beauty often resides in life's simplest things. And when we cross the Confederation Bridge, leaving the island behind, it's impossible not to glance back with a touch of longing. Ahead of us lies New Brunswick, the next stop on our journey, a land where nature meets history, and the Canadian spirit reveals itself in its most authentic form. We continue onward to New Brunswick, where past and present meet by the sea. Crossing the Confederation Bridge, the landscape changes once again. New Brunswick welcomes us with dense forests, gentle hills, and a coastline carved by bays and cliffs. It is a province where green dominates the view, and where nature still dictates the rhythm of life. The winding roads weave between rivers and valleys, revealing quiet villages and small towns that feel as though they were taken from an old tale. Here, time moves to a different beat, that of the tides, the seasons, and the stories told by the fireside. New Brunswick is a meeting point of cultures. French and English blend together in unique harmony, creating a mosaic of traditions, accents, and flavors. This fusion gives the region a rich and welcoming identity. In its cities, like St. John and Fredericton, the colonial past is preserved in brick buildings and tree-lined squares, while the present thrives in festivals, markets, and the vibrant energy of its people. It is a province that balances the old and the new without ever losing its essence. Nature here is generous and diverse. The tides of the Bay of Fundy, the highest in the world, reshape the landscape every single day, revealing rock formations, caves, and beaches that appear and vanish as the ocean breathes. This spectacle of ever-moving water is a reminder that everything on Earth is in constant transformation. The forests, in turn, hold a serene silence, broken only by birdsong and the whisper of leaves in the wind. And as the sun sets over the Atlantic, we reach the end of our journey across Canada, a country that is at once vast and intimate, wild and welcoming. From the northern ice to the eastern shores, from the mountains to the plains, each landscape has revealed a different face of the same soul, the strength of nature and the harmony of life. Canada is more than a country. It is a journey through the very soul of nature. From the glaciers of the north to the tranquil waters of the Atlantic, every landscape reveals a fragment of what it means to coexist with a world in balance. Here, time is patient, the seasons have a voice, and life blossoms even where the cold seems to rule over everything. Traveling across these lands is to understand that the planet's true strength lies in the harmony between silence and movement, between ice and fire, between humankind and the Earth itself. To watch more documentaries like this, subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.